All right, why don't we start with you, Representative Hudson? If you're the incumbent, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, please? And we know where you're from, but state the name of your district. And since we've just had a redistricting process, tell us what the new district is going to look like.
Sure thing. So my name is Zach Hudson. I'm the current state representative for House District 49. District 49 is Troutdale, Fairview, Wood Village, and then the northern part of Gresham. This was my first term. Before this, I was a Troutdale City Councilor, and I've been teaching in the East Multnomah County area for 17 years now. High school, middle school, some at Mount Hood Community College as well. Really, yes.
You're currently a substitute teacher?
I am, yes.
So why did you move from full-time to sub?
Because of legislative duties. Last year I actually had a 1-year temporary contract, and they just excused me for 5 weeks of the short session. But with the long session coming up, I couldn't commit to a district. So, and subs are greatly needed at the moment.
Yes,
so I'm happy to help out. I was actually subbing today at North Gresham Elementary.
Okay.
So in this past 2 sessions, I think we've had a lot of great legislative successes, both bills that I've authored and things that I've collaborated with my colleagues on. I serve on the Education Committee. I'm Vice Chair of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee. I'm on the Economic Development and Small Business Committee, and then the Ways and Means Subcommittee for General Government. And those are a lot of the things that I've taken on, education and environmental protections particularly, but then also collaborated with colleagues on things like lowering the cost of prescription medication. A great bill in 2022, getting rid of some redundant tax paperwork that was falling unfairly on some residents' shoulders. I've also been hard at work getting state funds for local initiatives, things like a Gresham program to divert gang affiliation and prevent youth violence. A local initiative partnered with a group called Cultivate Initiatives to create a workforce navigation hub so that people chronically unhoused or unemployed can get one-on-one personal help to navigate the system and get back into rebuilding their life. So that's a lot what I've been working on.
Okay, let me back you up a little bit. I believe you grew up in Ashland, right?
I did, yes.
So what brought you to the Portland area?
So I went away for college, got married. When we came back, we wanted to come back to Oregon, but wanted to be closer to somewhere with some more job opportunities and near an airport for my wife's parents to be able to visit. So we started in Portland and then moved to Gresham and then to Troutdale, and we've been out in the east part of the county for 17 years now.
And how long did you serve on the Troutdale City Council?
4 years, a full term before election to the legislature.
Did you and Mayor Lauer overlap on the council?
We were elected at the same time, actually, yes.
Great, okay, good. Well, we'll find out more about that. Mayor, please introduce yourself.
My name is Randy Lauer. I am the current mayor of the city of Troutdale. Like Representative Hudson just stated, he and I both served on council the 4 previous years. We were elected the same term. It was a great experience for me. And one of the reasons why I decided to run for council back then was I've spent a career working as a public utility worker, City of Portland, City of Troutdale, City of Wood Village, and most recently City of Fairview. I've worked for many different councils, many different mayors, many different city managers for that matter, and One thing that I always felt was missing from that employment was that street level or blue collar voice in some of those decisions that were handed down to us utility workers. And so what I wanted to do with Troutdale, and at that time, was offer that different point of view, different take on city issues and local regional issues. My goal, my dream ever since I was a little kid was I wanted to serve my country in the military, and due to an unlucky roll of the dice, I was born with degenerative eye disease that I honestly didn't know about until I became an adult, which barred me from serving my country. So when that opportunity left me for good in 2015, 2016, I decided that if I couldn't serve my country, then I'd serve my community. So a position opened up to be applied for on the Troutdale City Council. A councilor was leaving due to medical issues, and I applied, didn't make the cut, but the next election I ran for the same seat, position 2, and I won by 3 votes. 3 votes.
Wow.
God.
So for anybody that tells you that your vote doesn't matter, doesn't understand that your vote very much matters. So I won by 1 household and 0.7 of another household in Troutdale. Sat on council for 4 years. Like I said, really enjoyed that process. Never had any aspirations to be mayor. Never wanted to be mayor. I wanted to serve my 4 years, step aside, and allow someone else to come into the community and do their part and give back to the community that they love and serve on council. But when the then mayor, Casey Ryan, stepped aside, ended his term and didn't re-up, I felt that there was a calling for me to take up that mantle and lead Troutdale into the next chapter of its story, and I felt that I was the person to do that. So ran for mayor, won that seat, and right now I'm halfway through my term. So, sorry, Zach. When I win, I'm going to be leaving half of the term of mayor up, and I realize that the people of Troutdale didn't elect me for 2 years; they elected me for 4 years. But I feel that I'm going to be able to do a lot more good for our city and our region as state representative than I could ever do as small town Multnomah County, East County mayor. I don't take that title for granted, but it's difficult to do the things that need to be done and make those decisions when we have overlapping governments like the state, like Metro, and like Multnomah County, and by extension, the city of Portland. And so I feel that this is the best opportunity for me to take the next step, to listen to that calling again, and try to do what I can do to bring the greatest amount of change to our region.
What, knowing that your former council colleague held this seat, what was it that made you decide that you would be better to serve House District 49 than Representative Hudson?
It comes down to decision makings. It comes down to the state of our region and the state as a whole over these past few years. We've gone through really difficult times on all fronts, and I feel that the leadership that we've had from the state has been lacking. It's not a secret that we're a one-party rule state with the Senate and the House being ruled by the Democrats and having a Democratic governor. I feel that the decisions that have came down, and by extension the effects of those decisions being felt in our community, come from when you don't have two-sided conversations. And now I'm not saying that Representative Hudson or any other legislator hasn't talked to anybody else across the aisle, but they did so out of respect. They knew that the bills that they brought ahead more than likely were going to pass, and it was a free run of all the decisions that are going to be made.
So what's a specific issue, or specific bill that you're referring to?
We could go through 110. I think that maybe the initial thought of what Measure 110 was supposed to be might have started with the best intentions, but it ended up being something that I feel is one of the biggest reasons why we are facing drug epidemic here in Oregon. As
But
much as it is.
that was a ballot initiative, though. That didn't come from the legislature. You're talking about democratic control in Salem. What is a bill or a policy that you saw come out of the Capitol or out of the governor's office that you felt was inappropriate or caused you to?
One of the executive orders that came out of the governor's office is the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities executive order that she signed into action. With the one of the caveats of that is centered around urban development and really specific parking standards. She's wrote into law that takes into effect the beginning of the year that any developments that by extension have access to transit don't have to have parking requirements that fall in line with local code and parking codes. Troutdale, I think our parking code is, I want to say it's 2.2 parking spots per unit for multifamily. This new legislation that she signed into effect basically negates that because we have access to mass transit. We have many multifamily developments coming in, more specifically a Home Forward project that's coming right in our downtown town center core. If they pull that application, which we denied their application because they came at it with less than ideal parking standards, then what they can do is come back after January 1 with an application that has no parking standards.
How many units is that building?
I want to say I'm not quite sure, 200 plus.
Okay. All right, good. That's a great example. Thank you. Representative Hudson, so you started to talk about some legislation you've been involved with. Let's focus on a bill that you really helped shape, either sponsored or you did the heavy lifting on. And I'm looking for an example, or we're looking for an example of how you added value as a lawmaker in your first session.
Absolutely. So in the 2021 session, the first session that I got to participate in, we were looking for ways to help people experiencing homelessness get off the streets and get into shelter and into employment. That said, there are plenty of unhoused people who are currently employed and who are working. But to have access to bank accounts, to social services, and one of the things that was getting in the way was not having official ID and being able to prove who they were, either because it's hard to get when you're unhoused or because things often go missing when you're unhoused. My bill was to direct the DMV to issue an official state ID free of charge to somebody experiencing homelessness. A Republican colleague of mine, Lily Morgan from Grants Pass, came to me and said, you know what, I had the exact same idea. Why don't we team up on this bill? And we did. And so we were both chief co-sponsors of the bill, both spoke in favor of it on the floor, and it passed with great support. And sometimes it's frustrating that we can't make a huge dent in a problem like homelessness with one bill. But I think part of what we have to realize is this is an ongoing issue, and the way we'll make it better is by doing as many different things as we can to help people get back on their feet, and this was one of them.
Okay.
Do you have time for another?
Sure.
So in the 2022 session, a constituent came to me and to Senator Chris Gorsuch. This constituent lived up in the floating homes on the Columbia. It's part of our districts. And said there's a tax filing requirement that is specific to floating homeowners. It used to also apply to mobile homeowners, and that was gotten rid of a while ago. It only applies to to floating homeowners. It is carried out at a different time in the tax cycle year, and a bunch of people are missing it. It's a redundant filing. It's unnecessary, but if you miss it, you get fined quite a hefty fine. can we get rid of it if it's not really a useful tax filing requirement anymore? So Senator Gorsuch and I looked into it and talked to the auditor and talked to everyone at the state, and the agreement was, yeah, this doesn't actually help give us any extra information. All it does is find people who miss it in the mail. So Senator Gorsuch got it through the Senate, I got it through the House, and again, that was a very well-supported bill on both sides of the aisle.
How many people did it affect?
Well, in our district, it would be everyone who lives up at any of the marinas on the Columbia, but I know that there are other floating home communities around Oregon.
So every floating homeowner in Oregon benefited from that?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, do I remember, did you get some ink for going out? I should have looked this up again. Did you get some ink for going out to 1,000 Acres and did you go on some kind of a mission out there? Am I misremembering that? That wasn't you.
No. I hosted a couple of walkthroughs with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Hope team, local elected leaders from cities and Metro Regional Multnomah County as well. Just to it was a tour by the Sheriff's Department to kind of grasp a real on the ground feel as to what's actually happening out there in 1,000 Acres.
Did you feel that the Sheriff's Office and other officials weren't sufficiently aware of the level of camping and so forth out there, or what was your goal?
My goal was to bring just a little bit more awareness to the level of destruction that's happening out there by the people that are living inside the green space. Sheriff's Department does the best that they can. I believe they have less than 5 sheriff's deputies dedicated to the Hope team, and their role is to do their best to connect those people living out there with the services that there's available to them. The problem, though, is that there's not very many services available to them on the east side.
Who has jurisdiction? Who has jurisdiction out there? Because there's this kind of funny federal overlay, isn't it? Federal land. Yeah,
it's Department of State Lands and then Department of Forestry share jurisdiction over the Sandy River Delta. It changes there's a equestrian trail, horse trail. It's basically where the jurisdiction changes. Department of Forestry is south, I believe south, and then Department of State Lands is the land leading up into the river, the beach.
Okay. I want to ask you both about a policy. It wasn't a particular bill, but during the pandemic there was a lot of discussion about who should get vaccinated first and who should go back to work. And what we saw was that teachers got early vaccinations but were not required to go back to work. And I'd like to hear you both your opinions of that. I'll start with you, Mayor.
One of the stories that we're hearing and some of the perceived damage that's been done over the past few years with the handling of the coronavirus is that same thing. Teachers were in line first to get vaccinated, but then the schools remained closed, and so those kids were left without their schoolhouses to grow up and develop and to try to bring back some sort of normalcy to their developing lives. I feel teachers were given an impossible situation with the coronavirus response, and I think that they suffered. Zach can speak more to that, and that the children suffered greatly for that. It's my opinion schools should have been opened a lot sooner, especially with knowing what we know a little bit more about the coronavirus and the effects that it had on the young and as opposed to the older, the people dealing with comorbidities, I guess is what you can call it. I feel the teachers should have been, again, vaccinated and allowed to come back to an open schoolhouse, and that doesn't seem to be what was happening at the time.
I think it was right to get the schools open as quickly as possible, and getting teachers vaccinated was an important step in that, and we were able to, that was clearly a priority for our state, is returning to school as soon as we could make it safe. The difficulty is that There are teachers who were in high-risk groups, who had comorbidities, who were either of a particular age or had other underlying health conditions or were immunocompromised, for whom returning to school would have literally been risking their lives. And to insist that they do that was I think, more than anyone should have asked. But I think the way that it ended up working out was fine. We were able to reopen schools because most teachers were able to get vaccinated and reopen their doors.
Did we open soon enough?
I think we opened as soon as we could. There was the pandemic had a huge effect on all of us, including students, but all of us, and for many reasons. Just the disruption of our lives, of our jobs, of our health, and the loss of loved ones. And so there were definitely difficulties that schools and students faced because of it. But I think the way that the state handled it, prioritizing people's health and safety, and then getting schools open as soon as that health and safety could be reasonably assured, was the right way to go.
Okay. Since you two have worked together on a relatively small city council, I want to, and since you're both pleasant, reasonable people, it's hard maybe for us and for voters in your district who don't know you personally to tell you apart. But I bet you guys know the differences. So I'd like to ask you each to ask your opponent a question that the answer to which you think will reflect the differences between you as candidates. I'm going to talk for a second so you have a little bit of time to think about this, but something we often do. But it's more useful when two people know each other, as I imagine you two know each other pretty well. So you're the challenger, Mayor. I'll give you a chance to ask Representative Hudson a question first.
Wow, this is a first. First, I'll start off by saying when Zach and I sat on council together, I appreciated his presence on council. I told him when he left for his current role that I was going to miss what he brought to council. He's a very forward-thinking, a cerebral person, and so I missed having that on council. I appreciate everybody that I have on council now, but just saying that going into this, this is a conversation Zach and I have had in the past a couple times. But I'll ask Representative Hudson, if you were to go back over your time in Salem, what's something you regret? It could be a bill that didn't get passed, a piece of legislation that you pushed forward that didn't go anywhere. What's one of your regrets in your time in Salem?
That's a great question. So there was a Senate bill called Senate Bill 744, and it made, I think, some very important changes to graduation requirements in Oregon, and then also directed Department of Education to make further study of graduation requirements in Oregon and to come back with recommendations. We, as a caucus, the Democratic caucus, talking about it with each other, were very confident in everything that we were suggesting in the bill, and what we missed was the messaging, because the Republican caucus and some news outlets took one piece of that, the fact that we continued the deferral of the essential skills requirements, grabbed onto that and ran with it, and it left us who were supporting the bill saying, no, wait, that's a good thing. Let us tell you why it's a good thing. What we should have done, and my regret that we didn't do, is we didn't anticipate that would be latched onto by the opposition. We should have got out in front of it. We should have talked to them beforehand. We should have talked to newspapers beforehand and said, here's why we think this is a good idea. I still think it's a good idea.
And why is it a good idea?
So the essential skills requirements were created at least a decade ago. And the idea behind them was to have students do some extra standards besides just passing their classes. That would be some kind of hands-on, real-life, project-based learning that had some real connection to life after high school. In the 10 years that these were implemented, it did not become that. It simply became another standardized test. And my personal feeling was it was not helping anybody. And in wanting to delay those, pending further study, I think it made a lot of sense that we weren't requiring students to spend more time away from their curriculum, more time. It felt like jumping through hoops, because the initial real project-based learning was nowhere to be found. The unfortunate soundbite was Democrats lower education standards, which is completely false. And I think if we had done better messaging around it, we could have let people know why this is a helpful thing to our students in our schools by getting rid of a barrier.
Was this the bill that Governor Brown signed kind of without any announcement and sort of held her nose, or was this a different one?
I
You know
don't.
what I'm talking about? Was this the only one that was out there at this?
I don't remember
Okay.
if this was the
All right.
same one you're thinking of.
Okay.
Would you like to ask Mayor Lauer a question that will illustrate the differences
Sure.
between these two?
So working together on council, Mayor Lauer and I found ourselves in agreement on a lot of things locally. We both voted to rezone some land more appropriately that would increase our stock of housing. And our multifamily housing, and so on a lot of small town stuff, we actually had quite similar notions. But the state legislator is not a local executive. We're voting on bills that are going to affect everyone in Oregon, and so it's really important, I think, that candidates for an office like this are very clear about the big issues, the hot button issues, the ones that Oregonians really care about. I promise I am getting into my question. I'm prefacing this with the fact that our ability to access safe and legal abortion is literally in jeopardy because of the recent Supreme Court decision. We can't take it for granted anymore, and yet there are many Republicans, and I'd like to ask Mayor Lauer if he's among them, who would vote to limit it if they were chairing the committee and if they were able to move forward such legislation. But there are so many things like that. Marriage equality.
So I'm
Yes.
going to ask you to rein yourself in and ask
What
a
are-
question that he can answer.
He can. Zach and
Yeah.
everybody, go ahead and ask all your questions. It's okay. We got time.
On the big issues like abortion, marriage equality, healthcare, access to healthcare, a living wage, support for working families and the unions who improve our working conditions, on funding education. I'd like to hear more about your priorities. Oh gosh, and on taxes and on sales tax versus income tax.
Representative,
fair
with all due respect, please ask Mayor Lauer a question about an issue that he can answer. That you just tried to package 10 things together. I'm going to ask you to focus on one.
All right. In that case, let's stick with the first one. Do you support Oregonians' ability to access safe and legal abortion?
Yes, I do. So this is one of the places where I differ from my party. My party is my party is a pro-life party. That's the Republican Party. Not everybody though. I'm the product of a pro-life mother. My birth mother immigrated here from Guatemala while pregnant, for the most part walking, and came to live with her, my biological aunt, her sister, in Albany, Oregon. Gave birth to me in Albany, Oregon. Because of her culture, because of her religious beliefs and her family's beliefs, even though she came to Oregon, abortion was never an option. She gave birth to me. I was given up for adoption to my family right now. So some would say that, I would have a good reason to be pro-life. But me being a small town elected mayor and not a doctor, I don't feel that it's my responsibility. I don't feel that I am the correct person to issue laws regarding healthcare. I feel that abortion should be a conversation between the person making that decision and their doctor. And it should not be a decision made by me. Zach, I don't think it should be a decision made by you either. And so I think keeping that available, keeping with the laws that are on the books right now in Oregon. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be adjusted or there isn't room for improvement, because there always is in every law. But what I am saying is that sticking with the laws that are on the books right now in the state of Oregon, I think, is important. Allowing people that do want to make that choice the opportunities to be able to make that choice.
Great, thank you.
I'd love to answer Zach's other couple questions really quick. Marriage equality, I think, is of the utmost importance. I don't think there should be laws, how do I say this? I don't think there should be laws against love. Now, in saying that, obviously, both parties need to be of legal age and both parties need to be consenting. But both parties should be allowed to love each other regardless of their gender. And so that's very important to me. Taxes, I'll get really quick. Less taxes is better taxes. Less governance is better governance. I feel that we're right now overtaxed. So unless it's a tax that wipes away many other taxes, I am not a supporter of taxing any more than where we're at right now. If anybody needs to tell you that we need more taxes to fund programs, then they're either trying to take the easy way out and not use the funds that they have, or just looking for more money. And I would love to find ways and have those conversations to spend our money better, the monies that we have right now, or find better ways than adding another tax on top of other already overly taxed families that are working to survive and working to raise their children.
Sure.
I can't remember the other ones, but I think those are the three big ones.
Okay. Couple of quick questions. Measure 110, which decriminalized certain drugs and was supposed to, but has not yet provided new money for treatment. If that were on the ballot today, knowing what we knowing what our experience has been so far, how would you vote, Mayor Lauer?
I would vote against it. I do not believe legalizing any amount of illegal drugs in an attempt to fund rehabilitation or addiction services is a logical or rational idea. All we're doing is creating easier pathways to those addiction problems.
Did you vote against it originally?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Now, in saying that, and I've answered this question a couple of times. What do we do with 110 right now? And I'm going to answer the same way, is that it depends on who the governor is, January 1st. If we have a governor in place that's willing to look at repealing, I'd be more than in favor of repealing, even though the state of Oregon voted for it. And I have the utmost respect for our democratic process.
Okay, great.
If Tina Kotek is governor, and repealing 110 is not on the books, I would very much be interested in trying to fix what is wrong with 110, creating more accountability, creating more transparency, and getting money to these services faster than what they've been doing right now.
All right, you have something to share with us, I believe, but in the meantime, 110, if it were on the ballot today, how would you vote?
I would vote yes. I recently got to go visit a culturally specific addiction treatment facility that was in East Portland. It's in Senator Chalmers District. And it provides culturally specific interventions and care for people whose first language is Spanish. And the ability for them to access a caseworker who speaks their native language, group meetings in their home language is amazing. And we got to speak to not only the people who worked there, but the people who were finding treatment there. That is made possible by Measure 110 money and the services that they are able to provide, treating our addiction crisis like a public health crisis and not like not treating them like they're hardened criminals. It's been amazing to see. I see it working right now. We need to get the rest of the money out. We need to be very efficient and targeted in our rollout, but we're headed in the right direction. And everyone who is there at that facility working on their own recovery can tell you that they're better off there than in jail.
Okay. All right, you had something you wanted to tell us?
Yeah, this is the Abigail Adams survey that is sent out to candidates. Question 28 here is, would you vote to restrict abortion after 20 weeks, the point at which the fetus feels pain? And Randy Lauer's answer to 28 is yes.
Did you hear that, Mayor?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
So your opponent has pulled up on his phone an Abigail Adams survey in which you were asked if you would
restrict abortion after 20 weeks.
Restrict abortion after 20 weeks, and your answer on that survey was yes.
So what I meant by what I answered was yes, and what I meant by looking at changing rules or laws that are already on the books is maybe we should look at length of abortion, when abortions would be appropriate. If abortion's up right now, up until the day before a baby is full term and is being ready to come to the earth, come to the world, maybe we should look at restricting those abortions. But again, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what if that's actually the case. But really quick, what I wanted to say
just so I'm clear on that, you're defining yourself as pro-choice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, just for clarification on Representative Hudson's last statement, is I just wanted to make sure that I understood. Are you saying that without Measure 110 that we wouldn't have multilingual or at least bilingual social workers?
I'm sure they would exist, but the fact that we are able to recruit them and fairly compensate them is due largely, in fact, to the fact that we have Measure 110 funds available. There are many different ways to fund behavioral health measures, but one of the things we found is that there is difficulty recruiting and retaining behavioral health workers. Having the funds available to recruit and retain talent is essential for getting the right people in the right jobs to help people. So I'm very glad we have the Measure 110 funds available for that.
So again, you said they would exist. So do you not think that they existed prior to 110?
I don't think they were well enough funded to keep the right number of people in the right number of positions. We need to expand these services, and Measure 110 helps expand these services. Having more of them is better than having fewer of them.
Did we need to decriminalize drugs to expand those services?
Although the two didn't have to go together, because the Measure 110 funding, I suppose, well, it was based on the cannabis tax, and so we could have diverted that. People are very skeptical of seeking treatment when they feel that they're going to be not only stigmatized but potentially arrested. There are still barriers in place right now that are keeping people from making the most use of the resources they have at hand. For instance, people at that center are unable to distribute fentanyl testing strips to anyone outside of that center because that's still illegal. Result is, we have people who are using, and they're using polluted, debased products. We could be saving more lives.
Right.
Yes, we're saving the lives of someone who is choosing to use drugs, but we could be using saving more lives, and the criminalization is affecting that.
I want to ask you, your opponent, you may disagree with his assertion that he's pro-choice, but he's told us he's pro-choice, and he's told us that he supports marriage equality, but both of those are unusual statements, particularly pro-choice for a Republican to make. Is there a place that you would point to that you would show independence from your party, where all Democrats think X, but I think Y?
There was a bill in the 2021 session, and I can't tell you the name of it, the number of it. It had to do with a particular body of water, I think in southern and eastern Oregon, and two huge concerns for us, of course, are wildfire fighting and habitat preservation. The bill was about this one particular body of water, but it really did pit those two questions against each other. But all the Republicans voted to make that body of water available for firefighting if that question arose, and many Democrats, I don't know the vote count. Many Democrats, maybe most, voted against that. I ended up voting along with a couple other Democrats on the side of making that body of water available if disaster struck and there was a forest fire in the area that could use that water. So that was a case of me being on the deciding with fewer of my colleagues.
Great. We are a little bit past time here, so I'm going to end it with one question that we're asking all candidates. It's a question designed to show a little bit of your personality. It has nothing to do with politics, and that is, if you knew today was your last day on Earth and you could only eat one thing before your life ended, what would that one thing be? Mayor Lauer, we'll start with you.
Oh, man. That is probably the hardest question I've ever been asked.
You're a guy who likes to eat.
I love food. Food is my favorite thing in the world. Oh, geez. Zach, I'm going to let you answer first. I got to think about this.
Sure. I grabbed my family and I'd take them down to Sugar Pine, the Sugar Pine drive-through.
And what would you eat? Well, you got to eat one or drink one thing at Sugar Pine.
Oh, the waffle grilled cheese with a sundae afterward. Yeah. Oh, the pulled pork is good too. The pulled pork rice bowl is also really good. But no, I'd go with waffle grilled cheese with a sundae. Have you been to Sugar Pine?
Yeah. I've never had the waffle grilled cheese though.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
And Mayor, what would your last?
You know, I'm gonna be easy. I'm gonna be a cup of black coffee and a porterhouse steak with a side of French fries. I don't even care where it's from. Zach, I love Sugar Pine and I love all the restaurants we have out here in East County. But if it's my last day on Earth, I just want a steak, French fries, and a cup of coffee.
All right, very good. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you both for making time for us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
A